Patrick Spencer, thank you for joining us on this conversation. Modular Water Systems, of course, is a offspring of Origin Clear, and it's been developing now for about 5 years. And during those 5 years, you have been involved until recently in helping to build water treatment systems for embassies all over the world, and Modular Water Systems was part of that. Tell me about your experience with Modular Water Systems and the players.
Modular Water Systems was really important for the deployment worldwide of modular water treatment solutions for a number of reasons. We were working on projects that were all the way at initial concept of design, all the way through final commissioning and startup and maintenance of existing plants. Modular Water Systems, Dan Early and Rob Litos, were amazing in understanding the need of the client, depending on each one of those project phases, and being able to provide value from a decentralized water product, regardless of the location, the conditions, and the parameters that were needed.
So you're telling me that U.S. embassies typically have to be independent of sewage systems?
They do. A lot of times, because of the particular location that they are in and the load that they would otherwise put in onto a municipal system, they tend to be one of the larger complexes around in these urban settings. And so sometimes there are centralized municipal plants, and in other instances, there are not. And in both of those circumstances, there had to be at the very least, a pre-treatment of wastewater and stormwater as well that had to, before it could either be accepted into the municipal supply or could otherwise be recycled for irrigation said needs on those embassies.
So recycling was a part of the plan in all these cases.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And Dan and Rob were instrumental in making sure that we had a EPA designated effluent that met the highest quality standards, all by code, U.S.-based codes, that made sure that we were getting what they would call Class A wastewater effluent that we could then otherwise turn around and use in gray water systems or use in irrigation, both interior and exterior applications, which was amazing.
Sure, of course. Anything short of potable.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they were they were instrumental in making sure that we had the right equipment in the right place in the right order. And what was great about modular was, just as the name implies, each one of the situations, whether we were in Thailand or we were in Djibouti, Mauritania, each one of those locations had a set of geometric just constraints. What I'm talking about is programmatic constraints. Was the system to be installed subsurface? Was it to be installed in a basement of a building? Was it to be a standalone? Where we'd have to take these treatment systems as we think about the train, if you would, the treatment train, and where we're going to have to deploy them across different spots on the campus, as we affectionately call the embassies, or where we're going to have more of a central location where we could complete all of that treatment in one spot. So that it varied. And so that has a whole set of new pumping requirements, storage requirements, treatment requirements, censoring, centralized command of the control system versus having to have, say, 2 or 3 separate controllers, integration back to building automation that had to be taken into account. And to be able to pull all those together and make it such that the delivery and the design were both simple yet sophisticated. What I've seen in other instances with other providers is that they tend to try to master complexity. What I mean by that is they try to put every bell and whistle into the system, into design for every edge case scenario. Dan and Rob and the team at Modular were instrumental in understanding what was required, what could be the most simply yet sophisticatedly delivered solution that would be reliable. And you could also train on all of the local operators. So that's an important component that Modular Water was really good and remains really at the forefront of, is understanding the operability of these decentralized plants. And that while there is a support back at the home base for engineering needs and maintenance and operations needs as they come up, day in and day out, Modular Water's wastewater treatment and solutions were, from an operation standpoint, the most intuitive and simple to operate.
Right. So you don't have to have a water expert to run it in Djibouti. And you
That's
also
right.
have a kind of a set it and forget it mentality, which is great. The patents that originally and still differentiate modular water, of course, is the envelope, the high density polyurethane or polyethylene encasings, which are not always used. If it's an interior setup, you don't necessarily have to use it. But it seems like it's more than that. As a whole design philosophy that takes into account decentralization, meaning the janitor or facilities manager is on his own, and help is not going to come soon on a C-47 or whatever. So with that in mind, it's got to kind of operate, and that I think has tremendous implications for the whole decentralization movement as it becomes a real thing, right?
That's right. You need to make sure that if you're going to deploy these, that you consider the local resources that are available, and that you adapt a design and a treatment train so that you can ensure, through a series of both steps and articulation of the process, walking them through the process while you're doing these deployments. You talk about the HDPE, the high density polyethylene deployments. What was really nice with some of those deployments that we did was that we were able to take and deploy treatment systems in and around existing treatment plants, so that way we could actually commission and start up a new plant, and they were not necessarily down and without any sort of decentralized treatment. So because of the modularity of where we could deploy these things, we were able to then set them and get them in place, and then bring operators and make it such that the new plant looked a lot like the old plant. And that familiarity with the operators was really important, particularly when we were in Southeast Asia. There was very limited amount of space for us to put in a new water treatment solution. So what we ended up doing was putting it side by side on the existing, again, with those updates in technologies, those updates in the approach. But there was also this ability, in part because of the HDPE and how light it is and how easy it is in order to install, particularly from a prefabrication standpoint, that ramp up, if you would, in terms of training and understanding of your local operators was so much faster.
Yes, we've seen elsewhere that literally, all the recipient has to do is set up a pad and, water, electricity hookups, and the semi comes in, drops it in, and 6 hours later, after the membrane bioreactor is primed, it's up and running. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that we saw that a number of times, and that was amazing to be able to do just what you said, which is to be able to start that thing up in a matter of 6 hours. Was incredible, and a real testament to the design and the engineering that Modular Water puts into their products.
Yeah, so all the sophistication occurs at design stage, so that you don't have to have it on site, basically.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
There's fascinating, because the embassies are kind of a leading edge of this. Just like, for example, remote deployments of the military in places that used to be in, like Afghanistan. These are all, detached implementations, but there's a wider context starting to develop. I know that you are yourself fascinated by the possibilities of dealing with all of the rest stops and RV camps all over the country, as a personal interest of yours, but also we're seeing a global move towards deglobalization, which is repatriating a whole lot of factories to North America, Canada, US, Mexico. And it's already happening so fast. I'm hearing, for example, that employment is at a premium in the border towns of Mexico, that Tijuana has got 1 million square feet of unavailable real estate that needs to be filled, and it's going to grow more and more. And obviously the build out of central water systems is not going to follow. So every one of these factories, A, is going to be state of the art, robotics, AI, and so forth, and B is going to have integrated water treatment systems. And I think that's going to be a fascinating next decade as we move into that.
I agree with you 100%. I think that as we continue to see this build out, this kind of reimagination of domestic sourcing, domestic manufacturing, it's something that I have a lot of experience with. I have manufacturing plants in Minnesota, in Kansas City, in Colorado, and soon to be in South Texas. All of these are going to require, to some extent, a process treatment of our effluent on these manufacturing processes. This is something that is going to be, to your point, consistent in my estimation over the next 20 to 25 years as these plants get turned on, whether it's in Alabama or it is in Alaska or is in Tijuana. I think that this is something that's going to continue to be a need. So to be able to take and have a pre-engineered, prefabricated solution that can handle anywhere from 2,000 gallons per day up to 50,000 gallons per day, and to be able to say that that design is scalable, that implementation is scalable and growable, that future proofing of these decentralized plants is going to be critical, such that you're not only designing for what is happening today, but what is going to happen in 5 and 10 years, and allow for that natural growth without having to completely upend your infrastructure as that growth occurs. That's critically important. So what I see Modular Water doing in the way that they've deployed their solutions and is taking that sophistication that you talk about at the front end on the design and looking at, again, how do we future-proof and grow the modular water systems over the next 20 years.
So yeah, you're talking about scalability, right? In other words, you can just gang up these systems. Of course, they max out at a certain size, and then you can start, running them in parallel, and that is unlimited, really. Which we're not trying to be a central utility. We're
Right.
providing remote services, but by the nature of the design, it has this ability to start with a co-located unit at a factory, and as the factory grows, then we simply add on to it. That's fascinating. And what I love is Dan Early's Henry Ford mentality of like, hey, you got three or four form factors, and that's it. Choose any color as long as it's black, right? And I think that's smart because we have another division that has amazing customers, but every single one of them is custom, and it's so hard to scale up, right? So modular, I think, is dealing with a totally different customer type, which is tends to be on the smaller side, but could easily explode as it grows its business. And so I think there's a fascinating direction. It's an amazing time to be in decentralized water.
I agree. I think that if there is going to be a need over the next 20 years of dozen types like modular water, I just don't know who is going to run the business as well as Dan Early has run it thus far. In that the application, the design, all the way through to the deployment and the commissioning, to have that intimacy of knowledge and experience. These are the things that new players into this space are going to have to be really cognizant of and really careful about, is that when you walk through this, there is an art and a science combined to how you execute on the deployment of a decentralized water treatment system. There has to be design parameters up front, but there also has to be a knowledge of what are the conditions for that plant or for that lift station at a Love's or a gas station or one of the others, to be able to show that you've executed all the way from initial concept through maintenance, including preventative maintenance and continuous monitoring, which modular is doing, and have a depth of knowledge across all of that, is really going to be that thing that sets you apart over 5 to 10 years as we get kind of saturated with new players into this market.
Wow, it's really so exciting. You may or may not know that Modular Water recently became a division of our new Water on Demand startup, which is water as a service, right? And so therefore, taking away the capital issue for customers. And at that point, it's just sign a service contract, 15-year service contract, and you're up and running. Customer loves the fact that it's fully supported, and of course that the water rates will go up on a contractual index basis, as opposed to the random situation we have today with sewage rates going helter skelter.
I was very familiar with sewer rates going sky high in Jefferson County here in Alabama.
Precisely, it's and so water demand can control sewage rates because, of course, we're doing the sewage, and as a result, we can offer the customer indexed inflation, within CPI that we can sustain and they can predict. That's vital, of course, and of course they can do the recycling and everything. But what is critical to make it work, we wouldn't be able to survive this water as a service concept if we didn't have this plug and play type construction, so that these things would be largely, maintainable by low level or standardly trained facilities managers, and would only require occasional, filter maintenance and so forth. Because when you think about it, when we're starting to run the entire network of all these systems, and our machines are on site, and we have, provided a certain service level agreement type performance, and we don't get paid if we don't meet it, it makes it mission critical for it to be robust and standalone like that. So that's why we felt we had to bring modular water systems into that environment and make it and power it, because I don't think design, build, own, operate, DBOO works unless the built system is able to run like that.
Agreed, 100%. I think the BDOO system is fully reliant on the robustness of the deployment, which is why it's really encouraging to see modular water take an approach with new materials that have been time tested in a number of applications like high density polyethylene, and say, I believe that we can get away from having to produce infrastructure like concrete tanks and, gosh forbid, steel tanks, right, that need to withstand that test of time of 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And to have that operation know that it's going to be reliable over that period of time is critical to execute in a manner, in a business manner in which you say water on demand is going to work off.
Well, I think it's so exciting. Patrick, I really appreciate the hard work you've done with us over the months and years with the embassies. I'm looking forward to our collaboration in the future. I really appreciate you giving us a unique point of view, because it helps everyone, Dan's team, plus the public, plus the investors who are now investing in water on demand, water equipment funds and so forth, to understand how this is working and where decentralization is going, which, who knew that we'd be, stepping into a potential high-tech type boom, right? Who knew? Right. But it's happening.
It is. It is. It's been a great ride so far, and cannot wait to continue the relationship with Dan and Modular Water.
Patrick, thank you so much. I agree, and let's work together. Have a great rest of week, and again, I appreciate your help.
Thank you, sir. Have a great rest of your day.